Hey guys, it's Monday, 8:45 p.m. on October 8th, 2018, and I just want to give you an update here. We've got a couple of Hurricane Center bulletin updates that I want to share with you. First, let me just point out that we do have a heavy rainstorm here still in Cuba, and according to the latest bulletin, the storm has now passed to the north, right by Pinar del Rio, which is very interesting considering I've been tracking Pinar del Rio all day, and the wind speeds in Pinar del Rio, as I will show you here, are, well, in Havana, they're 16 miles an hour. Let's see if I can get the reading of Pinar del Rio just by clicking. Yes, Pinar del Rio is only 16 miles an hour. And I've been tracking this all day. I've been showing you guys that the wind speeds haven't exceeded 16 miles an hour. But what I do find fascinating, you guys, is this storm is starting to spin. Right here, we can see a storm starting to take its shape right now. So I wanted to catch this on radar since we do see the storm starting to spin, and this is what we've seen time and time and time again, is that a big chunk of clouds starts to actually start taking a form, and they report to us that it is a hurricane, but no buoys, no airports, no other wind speed instruments anywhere in the world can detect it but the strange instruments that NOAA is using all by themselves. Now first, let me just point out that this is from the 5 o'clock Eastern time bulletin that they gave us, and I find it just fascinating that they say a wind gust, which you don't measure winds, hurricane by wind gusts, but you measure them by sustained winds. But the only thing they can substantiate this as is a wind gust that was allegedly reported at an observing point near Isabela Rubio in the Cuban province of what? Of Pinar del Rio earlier this afternoon. Well, really, that's fascinating because I've been keeping an eye on their airport wind speeds all day, and they haven't gone over 16 miles an hour. So this mystery one spot where 75-mile-an-hour winds, it just happened to miss everything else in this area of Cuba. But it didn't just miss everything in this area of Cuba, you guys. It missed every single solitary buoy. Now, I want to emphasize why these buoys are so important. As you can see, these buoys are all tied to different links. These are stations of live data feeds that go to the navigational systems of the ships for commerce that literally go through this area. Okay, so this information is raw data right here. It's just raw data. And let's take a peek and see what the wind speeds have been in this area all day long, because this goes back several hours. We have wind speeds at the highest 26 knots, 15 knots, 14 knots, and 8 knots. The only one we see, there's 13, 12, 9, 14, 15, 13, 12, 9, 17. The highest one we've got as a reading all day long was 33 knots by a ship that was passing through at 5 hours ago, wind speeds of 33 knots. But let me remind you that 33 knots is only 37 miles an hour. You have to have a minimum of 39 miles an hour just for it to be registered as a tropical storm. And if it's going to be a hurricane, that is going to have to be 64 knots, which we are not seeing anything like that here. Another thing I'd like to point out for you is the temperature. Usually, a hurricane is not going to form over water in the atmosphere that's not 82 degrees. And look what we have repeatedly, 80, 79, 79, 77, 81.7. All of these, with the exception of that mystery ship that passed by 5 hours ago, that one did hit an atmospheric temperature of 82 degrees. But the rest of these are all too low. The temperatures are too cool out here to actually form a hurricane. You know, so there's something totally messed up happening here. I'm not exactly sure, you know, what else I can tell you. Now, just to give you an update on the 8 o'clock, this was the bulletin that they put out at 8 o'clock today. It says that they got the reports from a reconnaissance aircraft that indicate that a maximum sustained winds have increased to nearly 85 miles an hour with higher gusts. Steady to rapid strengthening is forecast during the next day or so, and Michael is forecast to become a major hurricane by Tuesday night. It's not even a hurricane right now. All we're seeing, folks, is a cloud burst that is starting to take on a little bit of a curvature here. This is exactly like we have seen every single solitary storm since Harvey that I have shown you guys, where there are no wind speed indicators from the airports to the buoys in the water to any of the personal weather stations in any of the areas. But repeatedly, what we see is a rainstorm that starts taking this backwards C-shaped formation and slowly but surely start taking a wisp that starts to circulate into a cyclonic looking pattern minus the winds and gathers a ton of rain as it comes onto shore. But right now, folks, this is a wind speed of 16 miles an hour in the area where the eye of this hurricane is supposed to be right at this minute. So we're getting inconsistent information. Actually, we have information. We have two sets of information. We have the observable data that I'm showing you, and then we have the reports of what NASA is telling us. Everybody wants to be relying on NASA's cartoons, but as soon as you take away the cartoon here, folks, we are left with what is really there and really measurable, and what we really see is nothing more than a very big rainstorm outside of Cuba that is nothing like what we're being told. Unfortunately, I do believe that over the next couple of hours, the storm is going to start spinning around. And we've seen it time and time again. So I just wanted to bring you this update and tell you that it's forming. It's a brewing. It's a brewing. I'll keep you posted.